Saturday's Fountain of Youth Day at Gulfstream Park. And honestly, Gulfstream Park does the big days just about as good as anyone out there. 14 races. We have 9 graded stakes races on the card, I believe. Barry Spears and I are going to start in race 7, and race 7 through 14 are all graded stakes races. So we're going to talk about all of them. The races prior to that are fantastic betting races too. It's just a great card top to bottom. And the man who usually joins me to talk Gulfstream, and we'll be bouncing around each week, kind of whatever the big races are. But this is another weekend where there are big races at a few different places. Aqueduct has some this weekend. Turfway has some this weekend. Santa Anita will have some. We're not quite sure if they're going to be Saturday or Sunday. It's looking like Sunday right now. They may push them back. But Barry, Gulfstream, right? When they've got a big day, they do the big day so well.
Man, this is a terrific card on Saturday. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is probably the best card we're going to get prior to the Derby. It's going to be hard to top this one. It's going to be hard. I mean, the 9 graded stakes is just outstanding. I'm just so excited for it.
I think it's 8, and then there's the Colonel Liam.
Okay.
So we short, there's 9
stakes.
8 and then the Colonel Liam, and then you've got a couple of these maiden special weights that are really good. There's that synthetic handicap race, which is basically like a stakes in race number 4 with some real quality runners there. So just a fantastic Saturday. And like always, we'll be diving into the daily racing form past performances. Gulfstream Park is one of the tracks where they have clocker reports every single day that there's racing. DRF picks and past performances. Shop.drf.com if you want to get involved in that 14 race card, and then you can get the DRF bets and play the races for Gulfstream Park for Saturday. So Barry, as you and I are recording this on Wednesday evening, they might be pushing Santa Anita's Saturday card to Sunday, which I gotta say, I really like that they're doing this in Southern California now, because in years past, they had some really bad years where there were horses that were getting injured on off tracks and tracks that were not in great shape when there was rain. There's been a good amount of rain out here this year, since the last 2 months, since the start of the meet. It's been a lot of rain for this area, all sorts of records. And instead of having to start a card and in the middle of the card, it starts pouring, we don't know who's going to be in on some of these races. Half the races get taken off the turf. The others don't. I'd rather just know for sure you're going to run on a day when there's not. And in Southern California, we do know a lot of these days when it's not going to rain. So you know what? If they're going to push it back and maybe they run on Sunday, and then they get the focus on Sunday, right? Because Gulfstream and Aqueduct will have their focus on Saturday, and then everyone on Sunday will be looking at the big stakes races at Santa Anita.
Yeah, makes them the focus on Sunday for real. It's like California's turning into Florida as far as the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, I think, have had more rain than we have.
Oh yeah.
And it's definitely throws you guys for a loop more than it would here. So I don't mind them pushing it back.
Right,
the
infrastructure, the tracks, the infrastructure, the roads, the way stuff is built, because you don't put time and extra building it because it doesn't rain that often. It's just plain simple, right? It's on the East Coast and other spots. They build up for the weather and the snow better because it's going to happen more often there. So that's what ends up happening. And I don't mind it. I get it. It can be frustrating sometimes, especially if you're someone who's got plans or if you're not sure what to do. But I think for us as gamblers, I'd always prefer, hey, this is going to be a day that could get really interrupted. There's some nice races. Let's just push it back. And now everyone will be looking at this really good Gulfstream card and some really good races from Aqueduct on Saturday. Barry and I are going to talk about races 7 through 14. Kentucky Derby points on the line, Kentucky Oaks points on the line, and some really strong grass races, including this one that kicks things off. It's the Mac Diarmida, which is a 1 3/8 miles on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. So we have some turf marathoners here, Barry. And in a lot of these races, a horse that's very important is the horse from the rail main event because he's fast and he dictates the races in a lot of them. He won the Fort Lauderdale a couple starts back, and he will at least be involved early in races like this going long. We don't know exactly how far he wants to go because we've seen he's been at his best mile and an eighth, maybe. After that, it's been a little bit, he's tried it, I think, once or twice, and it's seemed like it's been a bit to ask, but he should, again, on paper, be pretty clear up front, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah, I mean,
Win or lose, right? He's going to be up front winging it.
right, he's gonna make an impact on this race, win, lose, or otherwise. But I don't know if you recall a horse back in 2014 won a Breeders' Cup race that reminds me of this kind of situation. It was the name of the horse is Day at the Spa,
Oh, yeah.
and that horse wasn't the best at that distance he was running on Breeders' Cup Day, but had speed and could dictate the terms and won pretty easily, going longer than he ever had gone at 9-2 that day. I remember it vividly because I had a big score that day. But this horse kind of reminds me of that in this spot. A horse that hasn't gone as far as they're going, has a lot of speed, and really there isn't much else to run with this horse early.
No.
And
Anyone that does is going to be doing it because they look at this race and think that's what they should do. They're not naturally that fast. It's not their game. Anyone else, really. Like, I only could even sniff out a couple other horses that
maybe
for sure
Port
will be close. Yeah, and that's one of them, right? Tawny Port, who could be close at least. He's shown tactical speed in some of his races, especially the ones going long on the turf lately, right? In those situations, he's been more forward, and he could be a little fresh. I could see him up close. After that, though, it's
slim pickings.
as far as who's going to be right there. And so I think that has to really dictate how I'm handicapping this race. And it sounds like for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention that main event and King Max on the outside are taking what I think is a way bigger drop in class.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's a grade 1 to a grade 2, but the horses, Warm Heart is one of the world's best horses. I mean, let's just get that out there. And there's nothing even close to that horse in this race. And honestly, either one of those horses, Main Event or King Max, they didn't run all that badly in that Pegasus Turf Invitational.
Well, no, I mean, put
they
it
were
for
just
example.
overmatched.
In that grade 2 that they were both in before, where they ran 1-2, the Fort Lauderdale, those horses were 11-1 and 17-1 in that race.
Yeah.
Because you liked King Max that day.
Oh,
and he ran great at 17-1. And so those horses in the last 2 races they were in were big prices. And they're 2 of the top contenders in here. Yeah, I think it just shows you the difference in strength of those races that they were in the last 2 compared to this one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's clear that this is a drop in class for them, which is a bonus. I like both, to be honest, but I would give the nod if you had to, force me to choose now. I would definitely go with Main Event. But I also want to give a nod to Headline News. That's the horse you picked a few races ago, and that horse is on the rise. Ran a nice race behind Ice Chocolat, who's come back on Saturday as well. But you can't leave a horse like this out, especially, probably might not be the greatest of prices either. I mean, as far as favorites are concerned, he's probably not going to get bet.
Like the other horses, no way. Not like the other ones we're talking about. And what's nice is just by default, coming out of races going a mile, he might just be a little closer early.
Yeah, that's definitely to his benefit.
As they're going longer in here. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's sitting a little closer than he's been in his last couple races. Maybe he's 2 lengths off and he's sitting 4th. And that's where I think if you're looking for horses to bet in here, those are the horses I'm looking for. One who is, I'm going to throw in, if I'm spreading a little bit, I thought the mainly because this is a horse who I marked the trip down to watch last time out was Starting Over, who just had a brutal trip. He started to move. He was like 5 path traveling really well at the top of the lane. He was inside of Anglophile, and Francesco Clement started to fly, and it kind of pushed him inward. And he was never going to win that race. He might have even been a little closer that day. That was his first start in a few months. We can eliminate the Canadian International on a yielding turf, 2 starts back. He fits with this group because it's not that strong. It's really not. And so I could see him if he's not that far out of it. The problem is it's not like he's quick. He's been able to sit closer in some races where they go slow. Main event still a lot faster than him though, early. And he's got to stay within a few lengths, I think, here. But he's one of the horses that's at least on my radar here in this one. And I'm glad you mentioned Headline News, of course, because yeah, he's really in great form too.
Yeah, starting over probably needed that last race and ran pretty well. I think he's probably going to be closer because, hopefully the post positions will
Keep
shake
him
his
in it.
way.
And
Right.
Zayas does a good job at that also.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very good, especially at Gulfstream. He's definitely good at getting position on the turf. That one definitely you can't leave out either. It's going to be tough, but I think main event has a huge advantage here.
Yeah, especially inside draw. Just doesn't look like there's much other speed in here. You got Javi aboard who knows him well. So he will, he'll have a big say in this race. And I think it's really his to kind of dictate in race number 7. The 8th race, we stay on the turf. We go to the grade 3. Here Comes the Bride. This one is straight mile on the turf here for fillies. We have 3-year-old fillies and some in here that'll be the major players. You have Ozora, who's just really sharp and has done very little wrong in her career. She's won back-to-back now, and this seems like a really nice spot for her, about a mile on the turf. You've got Life's an Audible, who her form makes a whole lot of sense. She was a little overmatched in the Breeders' Cup. She came back in her first start of the year. She was a little bit short that day. In her second start of the year, she took a nice step forward and she won the race. And now she'll go third start off the bench. She's a super logical horse in this spot. Those two, I expect to be, major players in here. And they'll probably be 2 of the shorter prices in this race. From a talking point, we've discussed these horses before, Barry, in similar spots.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to beat Life's an Audible with Ozara in the Ginger Brew because Life's an Audible was coming off the bench that day. I guess with those 2 horses, let's talk about them first, and then we can kind of move on to any others we'd want to mention. Do you think it's just those 2 as kind of the top tier? Do you lean one way or the other? Would you think that now Life's an Audible has a couple races under her belt, she can kind of turn the tables on Ozara? How would you play those?
I think Life's an Audible is a complete standout here. The race sets up perfectly.
It does.
There's a lot of speed. You got Mystic Lake, Mystic Lake has some speed.
Yep.
Makanga has some speed.
Yep.
Irish Maxima.
Even Show Off.
Pounce on the way outside. Agra can also get up and go a little bit, especially, on the stretch out a little. But it projects this pace is going to be pretty decent and ripe for a closer. And honestly, Life's an Audible can be anywhere they put her. And that's, I mean, obviously we're not reinventing the wheel here. A horse is probably going to be around 3 to 5, 4 to 5 ish.
She does look, it looks like it's her rate, right? Because the form wise, third start off the bench, the way the race sets up, it just looks like it's ready for her to set up well, for her to take one more step forward, and she should get a really nice trip in here.
Yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard to beat her. But a horse besides those 2, Dancing and Dixie, I would give a second look to. If you eliminate that dirt race in the restricted Florida bred race, I think it was.
Yep.
Where Honey Dijon won on December 2nd. If you eliminate that one, this horse has been steadily getting better and probably is going to get a better trip than what she got on January 6th in the Ginger Brew.
That was her first start on the grass.
Right. And she was 59 to 1. Didn't run all that bad. Cassie, has come back with a nice work, or 2 nice works, or 3, sorry. On February 9th was a slow one. February 16th, and then on February 23rd, showed a little zip and a little pep in the step, and I think that tightens this horse up a little bit. Not that I think that, this horse really has a chance to win, but underneath, Exotics that horse
Sure.
might be one
Get an
to
aggressive
consider.
ride with Paco, just a little better placing, right, from a good spot down inside. The horse I wanted to mention that I'll throw in and try to get some value with too, I think it's Time to Dazzle, who was actually in that same Ginger Brew last time out, and this horse got crossed over on badly early on in the race and got pushed way farther back than she wanted. Because look at her prior 3 races. She won a race on the lead, but that I don't think she's not like a need the lead type, because she showed us in her debut she could sit off. That's the race that I really liked. Look at that race at Woodbine, first time out of the box against the boys. She beats the boys sitting 4th, maybe 2 lengths off at most. I would love that trip in here for her. Just like we're saying there's a lot of speed, that trip would give her the jump on a horse like Life's Inaudible, and maybe she could kind of fall into a nice spot. She's going to go 3rd start off the bench. And I think because her last race looks so bad, she'll just be a better price in here. Eliminate that last race. Go back to the Jessamine. She was only 4-1 that day in the Jessamine. And you can just put a line through it. It's on a good turf. She wants to go a little bit. She has a little bit of trouble, but we know she can sit. We know she can pass horses. And I think she'll offer you a little value in here too. And just from a plain, can she compete with the best horses in this race on speed figures? I mean, her top buyer is an 83, and that's right there with the horses we're talking about with Life's Inaudible and Ozara.
Absolutely.
So,
And this might turn into kind of a rider's race because, they're all going to try to plot to beat Life's Inaudible, and it's going to be hard because some of these horses' running styles, they're just going to go, and these newly turned 3-year-olds, they it's hard to stop them. They don't really know how to run that well yet. Not to mention Life's Inaudible, he's got six starts already, which is most of anybody in the field. I know there's a couple others with 6, but it just sets up for that horse.
it
I
really
think that
does.
one's really is going to be tough to beat.
Yep. Race number 9, we go to the dirt. This is the grade 2 Devona Dale. So this is Kentucky Oaks points. These are 3-year-old fillies in here. And we will have your 2-year-old champ and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner, Just FYI, who's undefeated. She's never been favored in her 3 races, never been under 7-2 in those 3 races. But workmanlike and improving in each of those. But Barry, when we've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks, we've seen a lot of horses like this, and some of them have won, others have not, where this is the starting point. This is not the end all. She will likely try to go Devona Dale, then maybe a race like the Gulfstream Park Oaks or the Ashland at Keeneland, and then you go to the Kentucky Oaks. That's the pattern they will use. Some of these horses come back and only run one time before the Derby or the Oaks nowadays. But while she is very nice, she's very talented, she doesn't need to win this race. And she's not even really like, I like her, I think, and she gets trips and she's a really nice horse. She doesn't really even stand out on speed figures in this race. They
No,
have a horse like Leslie's Rose who does, and even Fino's Magic has run a little faster than her, and so she doesn't tower over this field by any means for a horse who's undefeated, a champ, and the juvenile fillies winner.
yeah, I mean, she kind of makes her own trip, and I think that affects things visually to the point where she makes it look easy, and
You're right.
those trips she got in those 3 races end up looking like perfect trips, even though in the juvenile she was way wide and got good position early. Junior did a great job of kind of getting her where she needed to be in order to be successful. But at Gulfstream, you have to be really forwardly placed. And there's really not much in here past those 3 horses that you mentioned. Fiona's Magic, Leslie's Rose, and Just FYI. There's really isn't much beyond those 3 horses here. I mean, you can maybe give a
To
nod
be
to
fair,
Queen's Martini to Champagne. But
I'll mention the one on the outside a little bit in a second. But to be fair, you're completely right. And to be fair, we know what Just FYI did. I mean, I don't even know how strong that forward gal that Fiona's Magic comes out of. I liked her going into the race. And R. Harper's Rose is the Florida bred who's solid. She's honest. I don't know how good she is in comparison with Kentucky Oaks fillies, and in that sense. And Leslie's Rose has been very good. She's kind of won in soft field so far. Gunsong came back, but she's not really been tested, and she'll probably have you're right. I mean, it's not a strong, really overwhelming group, and a lot of these horses really aren't even all that proven yet.
Right. And that's what makes these races tough, because you could get a horse, any one of these horses could jump up and win.
Yep.
But like from the form perspective, it looks like those three. And honestly, I think Fiona's Magic is probably the quickest of them all.
That's the key.
She'll be in the lead, and that might be the key to the whole race, especially depending on prices and who gets bet where. I would gather Leslie's Rose and Just FYI would be a little shorter than Fiona's Magic.
Yeah,
but if there is a situation where Fiona's Magic and Leslie's Rose kind of hook up, and then that kind of opens things up, because I'm in the camp that Just FYI isn't as good as her wins. Meaning that, she won the juvenile. That looks a lot better than actually what the race kind of did and how it was run and how fast it was. So there is a possibility you could get a horse like Queen's Martini, who stretched out last time
when she
on
got
New Year's Day.
She got blown up into the turn, going into that first turn right at the start, forced out badly, like way out in the 5 path. And then she made a nice bid up the challenge. She lost to a horse named Power Squeeze, who came back to win next time out.
Tampa.
The one for me though, Barry, it's into Champagne because I was against her last time out, because I thought that was trying to beat her. Last time out, she drew the rail in the slop, coming off a 6-month layoff. That felt to me like the time to try to beat her. And I thought that she was pretty impressive that day. She was making her first start, like I said, 7 months from the rail, sloppy track. She got shuffled a bit inside. She was back to 4th, but she was only about 2 lengths off. She had nowhere to go. She just waited patiently, angled around nicely to the 2 path in between, opened up. Horse she beat that day is a horse named Launch, who you could see when you are looking at the DRF formulator past performances. Launch came right back to win next time out, earned an 82 Beyer speed figure in doing so. You compare that with this field. That's right there in the mix with this group. A horse that she beat coming back to run that race. That was her first start, so she can take a nice step forward. She is stretching out a little bit. The key, I'm hoping, can she sit third? If those two horses we pointed out, if Fiona's Magic and Leslie's Rose go, can this horse be forward from the outside and just carve out a really nice spot in third? Maybe even try to pin in a horse like Just FYI.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, if Fiona's Magic and Leslie's Rose go, those two are the next flight. In maybe one other, maybe Queen's Martini, but those look like the 5 that are going to be right up front. And, that's how a lot of
crucial, right? In the race like
is.
this, because you hit it on the head, like the positioning they're all trying to get. And if she can work her way into that second flight, sit in 3rd or 4th, and get clear run, then she'll have a chance to show if she's good enough. And maybe she doesn't win the Kentucky Oaks, but maybe this is a race where she can be a little bit fitter than Just FYI, who maybe is a little short in this race. And then you've got 2 speed horses who end up battling each other, and a horse like that falls into a spot. That's how you have to look at these races sometimes, not necessarily who's just the best horse in the race, but in this particular race, how might it all shape up? And yeah, I'm going to throw in this one into some exotics from the outside there into Champagne. You mentioned Queen's Martini. We hit this field pretty good.
Yeah.
Race number 9. That's the Devona Dale. Let's get to the very one, Barry. This one is 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf course here. Starting point, horses to discuss. From the outside, Callie Kim is super sharp. She was a grade 3 winner a couple starts back. She was second in the La Prevoyante. She was chasing Alpha Bella, who went wire to wire, gate to wire last time out. So she moved up the rail, looked like she was a winner, but the leader has had a little bit more left in the tank. So Arkali Kim was second that day. You have Cairo Consort, who was really good last year. And while she hasn't, her finishes haven't been as good, she's actually shown improvement
Yeah.
recently. She's just been in tough spots. You know, she was in the Pegasus World Cup against a group that, you know, any of those top 6 or 7 that beat her that day would absolutely be favored in a spot like this. And now she'll make her third start back off a long layoff. She'll probably just run a lot better in here because the spot is much softer than where she was last time out. Just from a starting point and talking about some of the main contenders, I think those are a few of them. But another challenging race where I think you can make cases for many.
Yeah, I mean, you really can. I mean, all these horses under the, certain circumstances can win this race. I think the only one that might not be able to would be Rosario's Prayer. But even that one showed improvement with switching over to the lawn. So, you
Yeah.
never know. But a horse that kind of interests me a lot is Highland Grace. Um, this horse kind of showed improvement when they stretched her out to these kind of distances. And you'll see last summer in June and July, she ran two pretty good races at this marathon type thing. Even broke the maiden at a mile and 3/8. Um, but the only caveat is there's really a lack of speed in here. And the other horse that I wanted to mention because of that is Sister Luann. I think this horse is better than Safi's other horse, which is Angel Nadeshiko. And it's kind of strange because they both have sort of the same running style
Mm-hmm.
in the same race. I don't know if they'll both run, and that might be something to pay attention to because if they scratch Angel Nadeshiko,
Then you really upgrade Sister
right?
Luann or vice versa. But like, I like Sister Luann better. I think
She's a better horse. She's
she's a
just
better
run
horse, right?
better,
Yeah,
runs
and
faster.
she's more likely to compete with this group, I think, if she were to stay in this race. But from a pure pace standpoint, there just isn't much. And if these two don't go at it, or if there's only one of them, I think you have to use the one in your pick 4s and pick 5s because she she fits from a class standpoint with this group
Certainly
too.
does.
We just don't know how far she wants to go. She
Right.
hasn't proven it, but she'll have the lead. She should be winging it.
Right. It's just as far as she she wants to take them,
Yep.
because I think she's going to have her own way. And if the horse isn't faint-hearted, and pedigree wise, she probably kind of borderline. Out of Kitten's Joy should go, and the tap it frosted angle, she should be able to get it. But I don't know. I mean, it's this is a tough race, and I think a lot of it, you know, people are going to gravitate towards Cairo Consort because of how she was, last year at this time. She really kind of hit her stride winning the Ginger Brew, then the Swedish Chant, but she has a lot of problems finishing races off, and this one's going to be tough. I mean, the the speed is not in her favor. She's learned to settle, but almost too much, where she's kind of a dead closer now rather than being more forwardly placed. Not that IRED couldn't put her up closer, but that might ruin her chances because of the distance. So that one's hard to take, and I'm leaning towards tossing that one out.
And to be honest, while she did face, if you when watching her race, she just really didn't have much last time, and she was
No,
down on the inside, and she just was well beaten by that group. It wasn't like she even really made a middle move. She was just about 4 lengths behind all the way around. Her figures are improving and they fit, but I agree with you. I think she'll be a shorter price than she should be win or lose in here.
right, and it doesn't bode well to be a race with lack of speed, and she's going to close into that
And
to
I don't
win this race. It'd be tough. I
and
mean,
she's
if
like lost it because she used to have a lot more tactical
yeah,
speed.
absolutely. Last
That
year,
was that was the thing about her, even right when she came to Gulfstream, that she had a little more positional speed. And it's like they've like lost that early edge with her. The horse who I think fits well as a horse in this group, but I just don't like the way the race shapes up for her is a horse that you've liked before, Miss Yearwood,
yeah, yep,
who her races going long on the grass, they're absolutely good enough to win this.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if she's going to get the type of pace she needs in here. She needs a little bit of help up front. But look at her races going the last 2 times she went a mile and a half on the turf. They were excellent. She beat a horse named Lovely Princess, who went over and is a stakes horse at Fairgrounds. She's been in with good horses. The race in the Jockey Club Oaks going a mile and 3/8 was very good. So any of the races in this range, they've been really solid and they absolutely fit. And I was just watching Con Air the other day. So I heard, the Trisha Yearwood, how do I get through a night without you? While I'm handicapping and I'm looking at Miss Yearwood and I'm thinking, didn't Barry like that? And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, if I had to live without Barry, what kind of life would that be? I'm just singing it all. But anyways, if there was the other pace horse or 2 in this race, I would really upgrade her because I think she fits with this group.
Yeah, she
I could just
certainly
see
does.
a second or a third come running,
She certainly does. But one thing I will point out is her last 4 or her 4 wins, 3 of them came with Lasix.
That's a good
And
point.
she looks a lot better when she's running on
Yep,
Lasix than she does
absolutely.
without. And I think that might be the difference between her winning and losing on Saturday. So, I'm kind of leaning in other directions. I think R. Kelly Kim, even though the post isn't the greatest, still can work out a trip because she's going to be kind of forwardly placed.
She's versatile.
Right. And be able to, kind of run down whoever's up front. I think she could outfinish Safi's horse. And especially the way that Alpha Bella was kind of winging it too, and she closed into that and just fell a little bit short. Probably needed that race. She hadn't been out since November, and I think there probably is another step forward. It's just a matter of price.
There's a look at race number 10 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. You can always find more singing on That's What She Said podcast. Each and every episode. There you go. For free. It's folks for free too. You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay.
$3.99.
As we move along to race number 11. I did read that the one Castle Chaos is going to be rerouted, which is a bummer. I thought the horse fit pretty well in this group and has been, really moving forward steadily. So Castle Chaos out here will be running in a different spot. In this Gulfstream Park Mile, we're going to get to see our buddy Tumbarumba, who we had nice success with on January the 27th. And honestly, again, in the way this race shapes up, he should really get a good trip again. From a gambling standpoint, it's tough to go to a horse who you got 8-1 on last time and won't be that price at all this time and is going to be one of the, the top contenders and the top choices in here. But there's really not very much early speed at all. And by default, it might be him or ticking on the lead.
That's certainly possible. But I don't really think that Tumbarumba wants to lead, even though
Me neither. No, I think he wants to sit with the
he needs
target.
a target. Yeah, I mean he was kind of all out to win the Hooper, and
That was the spot too, right? Because we liked him. He was going to
Mhm.
get a good trip. So it makes me nervous that he projects to sit close in a race where there's not much. But that was his best race of his career. That was the day to play him at the right price, at the right everything, all coming together. It's tough to do it back to back or to feel really confident back to back with a horse who's going to be a way shorter price.
Yeah, I'm probably going to fade that horse, but we'll see. Especially the way the betting turns out. I mean, now that Castle Chaos is out, that horse is probably going to take way too much money and be
Oh yeah.
overbet and
Yep.
be such an underlay that you kind of can't bet that horse in a
Yep.
way. But a horse that was really interesting to me is the outside horse Gilmore. And I can overlook those 2 races off the bench, the Mr. Prospector, which ran pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
to Sibelius, who has proven to be a real decent sprinter, to very good sprinter.
Yep.
And then in the Hooper, got kind of broke flat-footed, got bumped, and then got squeezed out, and then kind of just went through the motions.
That was it.
Yeah, and honestly, the way that Jose Ortiz rode that horse after all that commotion in the beginning of the race, he kind of was riding her or riding him like they had bigger plans, because the horse kind of did show some interest in the stretch, but that muddied up his form just enough that I think you're going to get a decent price on this horse, and this horse has a decent chance to win. Um, back last year in the spring and summer, this horse was really good.
Yep.
Just didn't win, kind of had some issues. You kind of get that with closers, but in this race, I think this horse might be a little bit more forwardly placed. There's not much speed here, and this horse has the speed in the past to win a race like this if everything kind of unfolds the way you know it needs to. Because you have horses like Wit. Like, what do you do with a horse like Wit? I
I,
mean, there's not going to be any pace. This horse
no,
is basically a closer, and honestly, the horse doesn't even finish races
he's
off.
been real for a horse who's a multiple graded stakes winner on the dirt,
You
he's
would
been
never know it.
disappointing, right? Like
Yeah,
he's just been a little disappointing overall. And for a horse who's won 600,000, he just hasn't. And that has to do with, he's burned money as a favorite in spots that seem like they
so many
were
times.
pretty good soft spots for him. And that's what makes it difficult in this type of a race where there's not that much speed to set up for him either. Yeah, I mean, I could see if they got a little more aggressive.
Well, that's what I think Steel Sunshine might do with
That's a
watching
horse
him.
who I'm going to use. I'm
Yeah.
going to use him in here because of that. And I agree. I think overall he's just a nice horse. He's
Mhm.
really honest in good form. He's been able to adapt to different scenarios. He's not that fast, so I'm just hoping with Paco he can keep him close enough. Last time out, he actually was moving with Tumbarumba. He was really, really wide. I'm going to make sure I'm using him in exotics for sure. And I think I mentioned Ticking as the other one who I'll probably throw in a few because he's not nearly as good as some of these, but he could really just catch a flyer. And if Tumbarumba says, we'll sit, and everybody sits off a length or two, and this horse just sneaks away, I'm going to at least have him on my ticket, third start off the bench, with the length on the field turning for home.
Absolutely. So, one thing I do want to mention is if everybody has that idea, and there is
A
that
little more.
possibility, right? There's the gamble. Well, this is where the gamble lies. Whether you think that the pace is going to be slow, or everybody's going to have the same idea and be like, oh, wow, this looks slow on paper, we got to go. And then
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of people go, and then the pace heats up, and it sets it up for a horse like, Ir Miracolo or Shaq Diesel, for example.
Yeah. And Il
Um,
Miracolo is certainly capable of winning this type of a race
absolutely.
against this type of a group, with his better races. Absolutely. Just eliminate the Pegasus and look back at the form all before at the end of last year.
He's
All
kind
of
of
that was
knocking at the
really
door.
solid.
Yeah.
And at this not quite top tier level, right?
Yes.
He wasn't quite what you could see. Smarty Jones at Parks, that's a grade 3. That's the next tier of 3-year-olds. He wins that race. But then when he steps up in the Pennsylvania Derby and has to face a little bit tougher in the grade 1s against Saudi Crown, that's a little too tough for him. This spot, this level, it's a good spot for him from a class perspective. It really is because they're,
Get some relief.
yeah, and Tumbarumba, he was just moving up from Louisiana Bread Company last time. It's not as if he's some overwhelming monster, and he's a really sharp, nice horse in good form, but there is nobody in here that should scare you.
No, not at all. I mean, this at least this race kind of projects to be a chaotic race, and I would kind of go deep in here in multi-race bets.
There's just nobody that I think deserves off their form to be a really short favorite or that short of a price in here. And if the ones that are, I'm going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that the scratch of Castle Chaos is going to sway the
Make the
betting quite a bit.
Tumbarumba
Yeah.
to Tumbarumba a lot. And I
Mhm.
think that'll probably be our approach in here using some of these other horses. I'm probably throwing in Il Miracolo in a few. He doesn't have to be too far out of it. If when they want to get aggressive, definitely Steel Sunshine, who you mentioned. And I'm probably throwing in Ticking and Gilmore. Those are probably the 4 I use trying to beat Tumbarumba in here and some multis. Let's keep rolling, my friend. Where do we go? Race number 12. This one is the Grade 3 Canadian Turf, mile and a 16th on the turf course here for older horses. Down on the inside, you have a couple who are very interesting because going through this field, there isn't all that much early speed. And Saratoga Flash is a horse who did not get close to the lead last time out from way wide, but from an inside draw has definitely shown the ability to go wire to wire in a spot like this. Next door, you've got Smoking Tea, who is a graded stakes winner and who's been in really nice form as of late for Shug, but haven't seen this one since November the 11th. And then Emmanuel, one of our old buddies, a horse who you've had some good success with a few times,
Oh
Barry.
yeah.
He is certainly capable of probably one of the better A games of anyone in the field here. He actually won this race last year, although he did have the benefit of a race off the bench last year when he won it, which was the Tampa Bay. But he actually ran better by figures off the bench than he did in his second start off the bench. So if you like him, maybe it doesn't bother you that he's coming off of a layoff. Atone is also another who's capable of really good with his A game. He won the Pegasus World Cup in 2023. He tailed completely off form in a few races after that. But then in his last few, he sort of woke back up and he wasn't beaten all that much. And he actually ran really well in the Pegasus World Cup turf this year. So let's talk a little bit about the Canadian.
Yeah, it's this is another tough race because I don't like Saratoga Flash at all. Even though, that one's gonna set the pace and it's just like a wild kind of thing. I really don't know what to make of that horse, to be honest with you. And my instincts is like, no, we can't go there. But there's situations where that horse can just run off and win, um, without any pressure, depending on the price. But I would figure Giant Game is going to be forwardly placed as well and
Yep.
try to get up front. So
He's the key to the
at
race.
least
He's the
exactly.
whole key to the race because he's fast. He's also entering a race on Friday. So we'll know if he's not in this race, maybe you upgrade the one a little bit. And that's a horse that you probably want to use in a pick 4 or 5 if you're spreading out here, because that is a speed horse. But I totally agree with you if the presence of Giant Game is in here. And it's tough to love Saratoga Flash as a horse that I'm going to say, I'm going to go bet this horse to win.
Right.
I'll probably throw him in the tickets, but he needs that type of trip. I felt like the two horses right next to him are probably the two to beat. Smoking Tea and Emmanuel.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Emmanuel a lot. This horse is
It's a good
very,
spot for
very
him.
good. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he's another one like we talked about. Life's an audible. He could be anywhere he wants in this race. If they go slow enough, he could be close. If they're if they get going up front and the pace heats up, this horse can come off the pace too and finish strong, and that's what I like about him.
Yeah.
You know, but Turf King is another one that is kind of like a mystery horse. This horse has been kind of on the turf and then on the synthetic, hasn't really run a bad race, but hasn't really broken through. And Chad Brown is very, very cold at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's been sustained the
Um,
whole meet, right?
right. I
It's
mean, he's
been
only at 9% for the meet, which is unheard of for him.
6 winners the
Yeah,
whole meet.
but he's got a lot of seconds. I
Yep.
mean, that could easily be turned around. Um, but it's tough to take a horse like that. Even Siege of Boston, it's like, what kind of trip is that horse going to get? I know he kind of lagged behind the speed in the last race at Tampa. Probably needed it, and I think this horse is probably going to be a lot more forwardly placed because those two races, the one at Churchill in November, and then the last one, it's kind of wide. And I think this horse is probably going to be more forwardly placed and get
Yep.
a
He's in the
better
mix.
trip. Yeah, and
No knocks on him.
couldn't get by Saratoga Flash at Kentucky Downs, but that's kind of a weird kind of track anyway. Um, so I'd be willing to give that one a shot. I mean, his numbers and speed figures
Fit.
fit very, very well here. Atone, I think his best days are behind him. He
That's
hasn't
sort of
really.
felt like the glory race last time almost,
Yeah, he
like
kind of dug deep and
to try to go one more
showed up.
time in the
Yeah.
Pegasus, and now it's like I almost feel like that may have took a little starch out of him, and I probably he'll probably be bet this time. And I think win or lose, he'll be shorter than I would want to play him in this spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go near him, just because of his running style and how this race is going to shape up. Um, but man, I mean, even a horse like Eldon's Prince, I couldn't dismiss completely, just
No,
because the horse is probably on the improve. But man, this is a tough race. Even though the field isn't so large, it's still tough because you got to get position and you got to get ready to strike, not rich
where
strike.
where where we sit a few days out, my sort of grouping of horses that I'm thinking about using in the exotics are 1, 2, 3, and then Siege of Boston. The 3 inside and Siege of Boston will probably be in combos. Some horse, if I'm playing my tries or if I'm playing some sort of Maltese, those will be the horses right now who are on my radar. Maybe I whittle down from there, but I think I'm with you. I'm probably a little cold on a Tone, and Emmanuel will be one that I would
I
be
might
fine
single
pressing. Yeah,
Emmanuel.
yeah, I'd be fine pressing and singling on a ticket or two. If you're playing a late, I always play a couple tickets. If you're playing a late pick 4, late pick 5, they haven't put the races out yet. I don't think I can look right now in a second and find out. Maybe if this is a coast to coast pick 5 race, something like that, you could single this horse in a spot. I'd have no problem singling Emmanuel. Yeah, they don't have him out yet for this weekend. So he feels like with his best race, he could show up. And I think you hit all the points that he's versatile. He's shown that he can win off the bench too. And he's just not quite been a grade 1 horse. He's really solid other than that. It just
Yeah,
right when he
yeah,
steps up to the tip top levels, it's a little too much for him. Other than that, he's always competitive at the grade 3 or grade 2 level. He's always there.
a-
And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be another fun race.
Emmanuel, our buddy. Let's move to the 13th. 2 more races to discuss on the 14 race card, Saturday, March the 2nd on Fountain of Youth Day. Now, remember, as we move to the last couple, there is a huge contest on Saturday, the Ultimate Betting Challenge. It is a contest you can play live at Santa Anita, you could play at Gulfstream Park, or you could play from expressbet.com. And what's cool about this contest, it's the full card for both for Santa Anita and for Gulfstream. Now we'll see what's going on with Santa Anita because that may change things for this. But with the UBC, Barry, there are a couple of qualifiers leading into this, and I know you and I have talked about this for a while. So we're recording on Wednesday. The Ultimate Betting Challenge is on Saturday. It costs $6,000 to enter. That's a lot. That's a lot for people to fork up an entry fee. There's a contest on Friday where you could win your way in for $600. It's a lot more doable, I think, for people. And then there's a game on Thursday that's a $40 feeder. That gets you a spot into Friday, and then you get into Saturday. And this contest is going to have $150,000 in prizes if it gets to 150 entries, which they're expecting. They're going to be 4 NHC seats given out, and it's one of the biggest contests of the entire year, and it gives you a chance to play the entire card. Check it out at expressbet.com. I've been helping them promote some of the contests as of late over there, and this is one of the biggest ones of the year. So, yeah, they're projecting with 150 entries. That's 150,000 in cash prizes, Barry. That's 4 NHC seats for next year with the full package. Like the NHC for this year is coming up just a few weeks from now too. So these tournaments are great for some of the folks out there who, you feel like you kind of have an even playing field when you're in a tournament. Everyone has the same rules. Once the entry fee is forked up, everyone's in the same boat.
yeah, you are, and anybody can catch a heater on any day,
Yeah, one
and
race, one run. The guy that I promoted, winning one of the recent ones at Santa Anita, William, who had nothing going into the last race, hit $100 exacta in the last race, and,
unbelievable,
and won.
and leapfrogged everybody.
Yep.
And that's how it works. I mean, I've done it myself. I mean, you're at the bottom of the pack, and you just kind of start trying to sniff out some decent long shots, And sometimes you can put two or three of them in a row together and turn your whole day around. I mean, that's even without playing in the tournament too. You
Hmm.
know, if
Same thing.
all it takes is one, and you're just soaring high. So it's always exciting. It adds a different layer of strategy and things to this game that's already difficult, and it's so much fun.
If you're someone who plays with the type of approach that we do, I think a lot of people who are players like us, Barry, who love the races, play a lot of races, but we're not betting with thousands and thousands of dollar bankrolls. We're playing to try to find horses that we really like to try to make a lot of money off of a little bit of money, And I think the contest format for people who already play that way and who already are in the no chalk zone and who are looking for those 5-1 and up horses, you're you're already ahead of the game if that's your approach coming to contest play because you're already doing the right thing in your head before you
Well,
get in there.
that's how I credit a lot of my success at finding long shots and
Hmm.
horses that are prices is from playing in tournaments, because you just can't chalk out. I
Nope.
mean, there's people that do it and they win occasionally, but you got to hit, let's say two two to
And
one shots, and you get 1 10 to 1 blow you right out of the water.
exactly.
So
In your head, it's better to just say, hey, look, I'm not even going to look at these horses that are under 4-1 in this spot. And I'm going to look at or to play, right? And that doesn't mean you don't handicap them or look at them and see, but that's not even a playable horse for me here. I think when you're playing that way on a smaller budget, you just know that you don't have to hit as often to win, to be competitive, to win a contest. You know, for me, I'll play a pick 4 or pick 5, and then I'll play a few horses to win throughout the day that are big prices. Because if one of my horses wins, I've got all my money back for the day. I've my money that I bet. I got a free roll on a pick 4 or pick 5, and most of the time, I've already made money just on one of the 4 horses winning.
yeah, and it could set you up. I mean, there's so many ways to play and make money. It's tough because there's a lot of different bets.
Which
You
means
just
there's a
have to
lot of ways to
focus.
lose too, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. You know? So, that's why I think taking the good shots, and I've said this before, and we've said a lot of these things before. The one as I've gotten more and more, and I've had some bad beats recently. I'm in one of those
Mm,
bad stretches where I'll keep getting myself set up nicely, and then something just wicked is happening at the end. But the one thing that I can control is making smart wagers
mhm.
and making value and betting good value in what I do. I can't control rides. I can't control stewards' decisions. I can't control track conditions. I can't control paceless race that shouldn't have been paceless. Those things are out of my control. What I can control, who and how I bet. And I'm going to make sure that most of the time I at least put myself in a good position with those things because those are the things I can control.
That's the key, is getting position. And same thing, we were just talking about tournaments. It's the same situation.
Exactly.
When you put yourself in a position to win, the more times you do that,
You're
the
going to.
more likely you're going to win. Right. And I actually wrote an article about this years ago. Um, and I kind of compared it to baseball at getting an at bat. The more at bats you have, the more likely you are to get hits. And basically you get, in a pick 4 scenario, you hit the first 3 races, the payoff leg, that's an at bat. And the more times you get to that payoff leg, the more likely you're going to hit. And that's the kind of mentality that I had to turn into in order to try to hit those kind of bets regularly. So you just got to focus, get the right sequence, make the right bet, and then hope for the best.
We are going to move to the final 2 races on the card at Gulfstream Park for Saturday. Fountain of the Youth Day, Barry Spears and Gino Bucola here. We are up to race number 13. And in this particular race, you'll have a horse like Be My Sunshine and Walkathon who come out of the Endeavor. They were 1-2. Figured both of them will get some good support in here. Chili Flag comes out of the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. She will likely get some good support in this one as well. She's a major player. And I actually thought from the inside, the horse who I wanted to mention first, Miss Carol Ann, is very interesting. Shout out to my mom. maiden name Carol Ann Rochford. So the Carol Ann is her middle name. Ms. Carol Ann for Grand Motion is a horse who I look at her form since she comes into the Motion Barn. September 18th, 2022. It's her first start in the U.S. She runs into a loaded group. She's behind a horse named Faith in Humanity, who wins the Pebbles and then comes back and wins the Honey Fox. Faith in Humanity was in excellent form to start in that stretch of 4 races right there, where she won 3 out of 4 and back-to-back graded stakes races. The runner-up in that race was Gina Romantica, who is now a multiple grade 1 winner, won the QE2 Cup, won the First Lady. This horse was only beaten a length in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year against the boys. You also have Amorie, who was in that race. This is a grade 1 winner, multiple graded stakes winner. She won the Bayakoa and the Beholder Mile last year. She's a very nice filly, when she was at the top of her game. So you look at the strength of the race. That was her first start in the U.S. She comes back in her second race. She takes a really nice step forward. She's second behind a horse named Regal Realm. And at that point, Regal Realm was winning 3 races in a row. And Regal Realm is a grade 3 winner. So no shame in finishing second that day. After that, we see she's got some gaps, right? And that was a gap from September to May. Then after, she's off for a few more months. She shows back up in July. Fine there. She shows a little speed. She finishes 4th that day. She takes a little step forward in her second start back. But what ends up happening? She has to go to the bench again from September to January. Every time she's gotten started, she's had a layoff. Got started, layoff. 2 races. You could see she's running a little bit better. She's stakes placed in this race. Then she stops. She's off till January the 27th. Shows back up on January the 27th. I thought it was the perfect example of a horse that ran like they needed the race. And we haven't shown any replay. So I'll pull up the replay for Carol Ann here, who draws the rail. She's the number 7 in the race that we're watching here. Hey, Pete, the voice of Pete ILO out there at Gulfstream Park. So in this race, she's the number 7. Fine start. She ends up backing off here, and she sits about 5th, ends up sitting about 5th, 6th. She's only 3 or 4 lengths off. She backs up a little bit here. So she's sitting in the 2 path. And if we just flash a little forward to her, watch her sort of move up into contention, but then just look like a horse who needed the race. She was a little bit short because she's had so many gaps in her recent form. This isn't a bad effort, and she's honestly still trying. She doesn't stop badly here or anything. She's just out there, not quite as sharp as some of the others, just not quite as fit. She's not far out of contention right here when Play the Music goes on with it. And like the difference between 4th and 6th was not that much for her. Now, second start back off the bench. She's going to be inside, so she's going to save all the ground. I think this is the type of mare who can take a really big step forward in this race, Barry. I think she's got a little hidden form. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a big step forward in there because she just hasn't been able to put a bunch of races together.
Yeah, this is a sneaky horse. I mean, because at least on paper, and one of the things that confuses me about this horse is the running style. I don't know what this horse
me
really
neither,
wants
really.
to do. I mean, back in the UK, this horse was kind of coming off the pace like really, really far back, and then here at Saratoga shows speed, and then again in the Violet at Monmouth.
Which is so opposite of how it usually is, right?
Right, and I don't know if that was just a function of the field and how everything kind of played out those days, or if this horse is actually better doing that, or if Graham Motion was trying to figure her out and say, "Hey, why don't we take her to the lead and see what happens?" I don't know, and then that's really a conundrum, especially in a race like this because there's a lot of speed.
And it's the key is what trip can they get? I love that she's in good hands, and I think this is the race we're going to see the best effort from her. Can she track, sit something like 3rd inside, get a nice trip, and pass some horses? I'm going to roll the dice that that's the kind of trip she can get. Maybe like what she was sitting here at Belmont behind Regal Realm that day. That's what I'm hoping for. Just like that.
That seems like the ideal trip for her.
Mm-hmm.
But
talk to us about some that are on your radar here.
There's so much speed in here. If you start from the outside, Ancient Peace has definitely got to go.
Has to.
Time Passage, Mohawk Trail is going to be in the mix.
Yep.
For the Flag's going to be in the mix.
Yep.
Walkathon maybe can sit a little. Expansive has the potential to heat up the pace. Even Miss Carol Ann, if things kind of fall a certain way.
And even like Be My Sunshine last time
Right.
got caught behind a walkathon who was on the lead. Sometimes they get extra aggressive in a race afterwards, where you want to make sure that you don't get caught behind, and then all of a sudden you're a little too fast early on, and you get caught up when it would have been better if you sat in this race.
Yeah, and that's really tough. But with that being said, I think the pace is going to be solid here and ripe for a closer. And I kind of zeroed in on Candy Light for those reasons. This horse has won at the distance before and should get a real favorable setup. And the other horse is Chili Flag. I think that one on the class drop looks
She's like going to trip out, right? She
yeah,
really looks like she'll get a good
she
trip.
really does. But then you have to factor in, Chaz Brown's been very, very cold lately, and
You don't want to take
I
too
don't
short.
exactly. I don't know what the price is really going to be like on this horse. Getting Irad, Chad Brown, they win a lot of races together. If they're bet down too much, I would tend to think somebody else. That's why I kind of threw in Candy Light. But man, this is another tough race. I mean, it's just it can go a lot of different directions.
The only one that I don't think I mentioned, you kind of hit the key for a horse like this, Mohawk Trail. Can she sit like she did in a couple races, like at Woodbine here on July 22nd, sit in a mile? It's not a bad race. She does have to deal with the layoff. She'll probably be having to deal with a wide post. I like her as a horse. She's probably a horse who I'll keep an eye on for their next spot. But
Training well as
yeah,
anybody. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I might have to use that horse, especially that one might get overlooked because of the jockey, the connections and all.
She's not really overmatched that
No,
much on speed figures and stuff either. When you look at what her better races are, they're not far away. That horse Breath Away is a real quality horse who would fit with these. You can eliminate that last race at Kentucky. Sometimes that's just tricky there. And the races at Woodbine were good. They're very good. And she ran well at Indy prior to that. You start going through her form overall, and it's not bad. That race at Tampa behind Mission of Joy and Alphabella is not a bad race. That was a strong group. And Alphabella, we just saw come back and win, going long now as a year older. So race number 13 is the Honey Fox. Let's move to the main event. Race number 14. This one is the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth. So as we sit here on Wednesday, we don't know for sure exactly what Speakeasy is going to do and Merit. It does look like Merit's going to go in the allowance race. Seemed that way. And
I hope not.
Todd Pletcher hasn't made the decision yet. With Speakeasy. But let's talk about this race like this is the field.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's say they're in this race because they made it seem like for some reason Speakeasy were to not run in this race, that maybe Merritt would run in this race. So I don't think he's definitively said he's not going in it, but it was leaning more like he wanted to be in the allowance race and they were thinking Speakeasy was going to come in this race. So that Friday, the allowance race, there's one that's actually pretty strong with Conquest Warrior also in it. And that's where these horses are cross-entered. Talk about the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth, Barry, you have two horses that were proven 2-year-olds last year that are making their first start of the year, Dornich and Locked. And you have some up-and-coming horses like Merit, like Real Macho, Victory Avenue, and Speakeasy, who are all talented. So you have the horses with more proven form, but this isn't the end-all, be-all for them. Those horses are focused on trying to be prepping and ready and primed for the Derby. Locked has been rerouted, I think, a couple different times too. So you never know if he's going to be necessarily 100% in this race. How does this thing shake out in your mind?
It's really Locke's race to win or lose. I mean,
I agree.
you would think Speakeasy is going to attract a lot of attention, just because of that flashy maiden score. Um, but it's hard to tell what they're going to do when they stretch out, and I don't want to take a horse like that at a short price. And we've seen it time and time again. The horse with the big figure goes into a race doing something for the first time, and they just don't fire, or just needed the experience and come out of the race better than they went into it. Um, and they're usually with these younger horses, the paces going long for the first time tend to heat up, and you got some speed here. Victory Avenue, who Speakeasy faced the first time, is in here as well and should provide some pace. um Bro will probably have to try his best to get to the front.
He might be right in between horses that are both showing speed too.
Right. Dornock, who probably
I don't think
class-wise
he can
is better
sit,
than
right?
everybody else, but I don't think
Can
he
he
can sit
sit?
either.
Or
No.
I got to see it from him at least. He hasn't shown me really that he's wanted to sit.
Well, I mean, he might be forced to, because the paces in the races that he's been going, like a mile and the 16th, have been slower, and he might just fall into that kind of trip,
If
kind of a
especially if the two or the three horses inside of him go
right.
and he doesn't want to go 4 or 5 wide, he lets them go and sits behind them. We saw Timberlake have to do that and he did it, at Oaklawn. But I'm betting against Dornich doing it or doing it successfully to win in this spot in this first start here. I don't think he's going to sit as much. So it sounds like between him and Locked, you prefer Locked?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Me
Locked,
too.
that horse is got the run of the race, and it's just a matter if he's fit and ready.
Yeah.
Um, and the other horse that kind of caught my eye was Merit. I liked his race off the bench, and should improve off of that effort. Real Macho is in this race too, and you can't count that one out just because of the
Yeah.
running style.
That's the key, right? The two that I'm semi intrigued with are Real Macho. This might just be a race that he falls into a good spot
Hmm.
because of the field. I'm looking at closers, I think, and I'm kind of eliminating some of the closers. I need to see Dancing Groom improve a little bit more. I need to see Frankie's Empire maybe improve a little bit more. I couldn't really get there with Ladom Bro. I think he's going to be part of the pace. So as far as the closers, I'm kind of down to Real Macho and Locked. And if we think Locked is maybe just a little bit short here and maybe better second time out, by process of elimination, this is one of these horses who could be one of the few closing. He could be improving right now, fit, not have to be that far out of it with some tactical speed that he's shown. He may not be a Kentucky Derby winner, but he may be ready to run one of the better races on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Real Macho and Locke seem to be the only true kind of closers. I mean, Frankie's
Mm-hmm.
Empire is a closer, but I don't think that horse is going to be anywhere
I
near.
don't think he's this quality.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, it's just a matter of who's ready. And you would think that Locked might not be at his best. So a horse like Real Macho has a lot of intrigue here.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one that I think might be the spot play in this race. If you're looking for maybe a horse to play to win, definitely throw him in your pick fours and your pick fives here because he could get a really nice trip. The saying if this race were to stay intact, what makes it a little difficult with horses like Victory Avenue and Speakeasy. So they were both in the same race on January the 27th, and it was a strong maiden special weight race. On paper, it really looked like a strong one. And Speakeasy actually drew the rail. Watch, we can show the beginning of the race here. Speakeasy drew the rail. Speakeasy's the 1, Victory Avenue's the 5. And again, this is the career debut. These are horses who they both know they are highly regarded. Their connections know they're good. They think highly of. So I'm not shocked that they both show speed. It is hard when a horse has only run one time to even know for sure that they're just a have to go to the lead speed horse, right? I mean, because either one of these horses, Victory Avenue broke right on top and went, and then we see Speakeasy get off the rail and move to the outside. If either one of these horses were a little bit more off the pace, I really wouldn't be that shocked. It's just difficult when horses only have the one race because you really don't know. Their running style could be different from what they showed in the only race we've seen.
Well, not only that, they ran huge numbers for you know,
They're
first time
talented.
starters. They definitely are, but it's like, well,
Did they?
how much better can they get?
Mm-hmm. It's a great point.
And they could win this race, win the next race, but at some point they're going to have to regress. And I think that what did I see? The highest buyer this year was like was it like a 115 or
105.
something?
Oh,
105?
so the 105, I think that we've seen with like the dirt, Judge Miller hit it last week, and there's been 3 or 4 other horses. Speakeasy was the biggest debut so far this year with 100. I think there have been 3 or 4 others that are 3-year-olds in this class that have hit the triple-digit buyer speed figure. But no, I agree with you as far as can they improve? That was a monster race first time out. I'm more like if one of the 2 of these horses doesn't go and then some of these horses start sitting off, this is a
It
situation
could get
where
crazy.
a horse like Victory Avenue just
Right.
goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then just sneaks away. I do think this is a nice horse, Victory Avenue, as
Mhm.
well as Speakeasy. And if for some reason Speakeasy is getting a bunch of money and there's a huge difference between these 2, I'm not going to completely dismiss Victory Avenue if this horse gets dismissed by the public a little bit in here.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think that one's, ripe to be third choice.
So if for some reason he's not, or there's a big difference between them, I'm gonna include him in one of the 4 Kentucky Derby prep races that are set up for this weekend. Gulfstream Park has the Fountain of Youth. We have the Aqueduct. What is the Gotham over at Aqueduct? We've got Santa Anita with the San Felipe, which will either be Saturday or Sunday this week. And then we've got Turfway Park, I believe, with the Battaglia as one of their prep races. And then they'll have another one coming up next month. So big weekend from Friday through Sunday. There are 4 Derby preps and 4 Oaks preps scheduled between 4 different tracks. Santa Anita, you've got Turfway, Aqueduct, and Gulfstream Park. Hopefully we were able to help lead you to a few horses here at Gulfstream Park on a really good card to dive into. Barry, man, it's kind of crazy to think about right now how fast it's going at Gulfstream Park because we really have the one
month
big
left.
day of
Right.
the championship meet with Florida Derby and that next big day, but we've already been through Holy Bull and Pegasus and now Fountain of Youth. It is really flying, and that always signals how close we are getting to the Kentucky Derby.
Absolutely. There's only a month left. I mean, the Florida Derby's at the end of
March,
March
yeah.
or April, like the first weekend, and then it's Keeneland. So once you get to Keeneland, it's like here, you know what I mean. So we'll see all those prep races in the month of March, and hopefully this Derby picture gets more clear.
Barry Spears, my good friend, joins me each and every week to talk races from all across the country. Barry, let the folks out there know where they can hear more of you with Going in Circles, with Big Mondays. We'll always be following you on social media at Urban Handicapper, but talk to the folks about the podcast and what you have with Going in Circles.
Yeah, we're actually going to be forced to, I think, have to provide video.
Oh, there we go.
So
Love it.
that might be happening. We got some equipment coming, and we have to get that settled first before we're gonna invite more guests on, and we're definitely gonna get Gino on. But that's some things that we're planning on doing. You'll see me pop up here and there, radio shows, Steve Bick, stuff like that. So definitely hit me up on Twitter. Always willing to talk to races, man.
Barry Spears is the man, and I hope you have a fantastic Saturday, buddy. Barry and I will be back next week. So next week is the big one, Tampa. Next week is Tampa, I believe, the Tampa Bay Derby
Yes,
next
indeed.
week. And then I think there's like 1 week sort of in between where there's not a big prep. And then boom, it's that last, like Tampa Bay Derby kind of kicks off the last round of preps. We go from Tampa to Fairgrounds, a little at Oaklawn after that too, and then back to Santa Anita, Gulfstream, and at Aqueduct. And, we'll get to Keeneland following that too. So we're getting there. We are excited, and Barry and I will be here on the road to the Derby with you over the next couple months. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Remember, whenever you're going to play the races, head to drf.com. Gulfstream Park has past performances, clocker reports, DRF picks every racing day at shop.drf.com there. Mike Welsh does a fantastic job covering all the stuff from Gulfstream. David Grenning is always helping out there when there's big days, helping out with extra articles and extra previews and stuff like that. So DRF has a fantastic team on board. Good luck to everyone. Barry and I will be back talking more racing next week. We hope you have a fantastic Saturday all around the country. Best of luck.